Hey, Mike with Makelure. I want to show you today how to make a soft plastic injection mold of an existing soft plastic lure using Alumilight's VAC 50. This is a quick and easy tutorial that will enable you to basically customize any soft plastic bait that you want. Maybe it's if they don't exist anymore, or maybe it's something you just want to customize. Let me show you how this works. First thing we're going to do is find a container or a mold box that we can pour the VAC 50 in, and then we're going to set our lures right into that VAC 50 to make the first half of our mold. When you first open up the cans of the VAC 50, the atomized aluminum powder will settle to the bottom. Go ahead and take your stir stick and agitate that aluminum powder and stir it all in until it's a nice smooth consistency. Do this for both sides. Before mixing them together, make sure your mold box is sealed and mold released so the VAC 50 doesn't stick to it. Here we're using some Alumilight's UMR. Once you have your containers mold released, go ahead and mix out equal amounts of the VAC 50. Once measured properly, mix it thoroughly, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom until you know you have it completely mixed. Once you think you have it completely mixed, mix it again just to make sure. Once you have it mixed well, we're going to pour a small layer in the bottom of both containers. We're also going to pour a little bit of excess into a 1 ounce cup. This will help us establish the consistency of when it's curing and when it's starting to thicken. This will allow us to know exactly when to put the lures into the VAC 50. Here we're using some solder to simply make a vent hole or a pour hole onto our lure. So we're simply going to take this and stick it into the front of our grub. Here we're using a hot melt stick to act as the pour or the gate for where we're going to inject the soft plastic. This is what it's going to look like in our mold. We wait for the VAC 50 to cure a little bit until the open time is practically gone. This happens at about the 5-minute point where the VAC 50 starts to get thick. Then we simply lay the lure with the solder into the VAC 50 approximately halfway down. For bigger lures, we need to make sure we have a bigger sprue. Here we're just using a piece of acrylic that we found in the shop. Now we're laying our frogs into the VAC 50 to make the first half of our mold. We're going to add some solder strips to act as gates for each of the tails. This will ensure that we have an area for the air to escape to make sure that we have a full pour. Once the VAC 50 cures, we're going to take a drill bit and just make several indentations around the parts to act as locators for the first and second half of the mold. We don't want to go very deep, but simply an 1/8 inch or so would do. Once you've made your indentations with a drill bit, blow off all the excess with an air hose and use UMR to mold release it. We want to make sure we spray this well to make sure that the first half of the mold does not bond to the second. Once we've mold released it, we mix up our second batch of VAC 50 and pour it over the first halves of our mold. When the second half cures, go ahead and remove the VAC 50 mold from your mold box and separate the two halves. You'll more than likely have to chisel or pry these apart. You'll also want to file the edges to make sure they're not sharp. Once you have the two halves apart, go ahead and remove the solder, the lure, and the hot melt. Next you'll want to use a drill bit to drill out the pour hole. Make sure your drill bit's the same size as your injector. This will make sure that you have a nice tight fit when you go to inject your parts. Here we're prying the mold apart for the frog, cleaning up the mold, filing the edges, and getting ready to pour them. With these particular lures, we wanted to make them absolutely glow in the dark. So now we have our molds that are ready to pour. Here we've mixed up some Alumisol with some phosphorescent powder, and we simply inject the soft plastic into each mold. You want to make sure you fill up the pour hole completely, as this gives the material an area to shrink from. Once the Alumisol is cooled, go ahead and open the mold and remove your lures. If you get shrinkage in the lure, in the body of the lure, go ahead and open the sprue hole up between the gate where you pour and the lure itself. That's where that solder was at. This will allow the material to shrink from the gate and not from the lure. Here you can see the original lures along with the ones that we've cast, where we've added the phosphorescent powder. The phosphorescent powder is very bright and will charge quickly with sunlight or a flashlight. If you have questions on this process using the VAC 50 to make a mold of an existing lure or one that's been discontinued, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to help you out, or visit us online at Makelure.com.